Josh, yesterday you said seeing after the Atlanta shooting, individuals lining up to donate blood was powerful and represents what this country is all about. But under the Obama administration policy, gay and bisexual men are prohibited from donating blood unless they've been celibate for a year.
Chris, as you know, this is a decision that was made by the FDA, and it was made consistent with the advice that our scientists have offered about the best way to ensure the safety of the blood supply.
I think the ban has a history that becomes hard to discard.
Back in the 80s, when the HIV crisis first broke, there was a lot of blood that was tainted with HIV. The risk at that time in the early 80s was somewhere around 1 in 100. That quickly went down as we began to develop testing for the virus and we could detect it. The risk of contracting an infectious disease through blood is somewhere around the range of 1 in 2 million. For most of the big three, we say, HIV, hepatitis B, and hepatitis C.
When I found out about it, this immediate like sigh of relief almost that I haven't felt in the past 15 years.
As we have learned more and more about HIV, as we have learned more and more about diagnostics to detect HIV, the science of blood donor screening hasn't kept up.
Every time you go in to donate blood, you fill out a questionnaire. I would see that question on there. And I wasn't really coming to full terms with myself yet, but I knew there was a possibility that could happen. Immediately, it's called self-disqualification.
I actually had no idea that there was a lifetime ban. Like when I tried to go give blood one time, they started asking me all these questions. You know, they asked me if I ever had sex with a man. I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, well, I'm sorry, you can't. And I was like, what? I didn't know why they cared. I didn't know why that mattered. It was very confusing.
Having to just forcefully stop doing something that you really, really want to do is like, it was debilitating, honestly. You also kind of felt a little bit of shame because of your sexuality as well.
It would be easier for you to get struck with lightning than to contract AIDS through a blood transfusion. It makes a lot more sense if we went to what is called individual risk-based assessment, which takes a generalized approach. It doesn't ask what your gender is, it doesn't ask what your sexual preferences are. It simply assesses whether you are at greater risk based on your sexual history. The FDA is all about the safest blood possible. They need to study this question extensively before they will change their policy.
I would just hope that, you know, men who have sex with men would be treated the same as anybody else. It's like we're not less than. You know, we have the same blood as you. The H in HIV stands for human. It doesn't stand for anything else. So it affects all of us.
Sunday, June 12th, 2016. The time, 2:31 a.m.
Orlando Police Department, this is Tabitha. Your call is being recorded.
Yes, I live in Tampa, Florida, and my daughter just called me to tell me that there has been a shooting at Pulse nightclub. I don't know if y'all have gotten a call on that.
Yes, we have officers over there, and we also have the fire department. They're all staging out there. Is your daughter there?
My daughter is there. She said apparently she's been shot twice. That's
okay.
all I know.
People were targeted because of who they are and who they love.
It was a massive shooting. People need blood.
A lot of people wanted to give blood, especially people who are gay. They wanted to help.
Seeing those lines, I think it was the first time that many people realized that there was this ban.
It is an area where politics and passion and bias and stigma all converge. Stigma and discrimination are not based on fact, they're based on fear. HIV is not a death sentence anymore, and it hasn't been for decades. Now we know that people who are on treatment and have their virus controlled do not transmit sexually to their sexual partners.
The blood supply is usually measured by number of days of inventory on the shelf at a blood center, and they usually are comfortable if there's 5 to 7 days of blood on the shelf. Before COVID, that if it dropped down to 3 days of supply, they would say we're getting to a critical point, we need to put out a call to donors. Since COVID, we were at 1 day's supply of blood on the shelf. We have a lot of people out there who want to do the right thing. And in some cases, they can't because of regulations. I don't want the policies of the FDA to reduce the number of people. If they want to donate blood and they are at low risk for a virus or having tainted blood, I say let them come out.
I actually had a journal entry from January 4th of 1999.
I've not spent much time talking about Peter. My, has he changed. He is so much the image of the ideal man.
He basically said, would you be interested in spending your life with me? And my immediate response was I laughed. And I said, why would we want to ruin a perfectly good friendship?
He is strong, determined, capable, beautiful, loving, and multifaceted.
It was New Year's Eve, and that was our magic moment. That I turned to him and I said, you know what? I do think we need to give this a try.
The thoughts I felt about living my life with him have become a reality. I hope this works. It feels so right.
He worked with the HIV testing program for what was then known as Mercy Mobile. I went on to run an HIV advocacy organization called AIDS Survival Project. These were the roles that we played. I was the advocate, he was the medical educator. When it really stopped making sense was when I got into a committed relationship with the man who would eventually become my husband. And that's when that sense of loss, and frankly that sense of anger, started to rise from time to time.
In my own practice, I have many, many gay couples who are men whose blood I would take in a heartbeat. They are in long-term relationships. They're monogamous. I think the problem is we haven't followed the science. We would really be able to meet the needs of the population whose lives depend on having blood transfusions if we open up a little bit more.
One morning in August, when he had been ill for several days, I'd reached out to his primary care physician. The primary care doctor had set him up to get some more medical tests the next week, and went to wake him up one morning, and he just said he couldn't feel his legs, and then he fell back and collapsed in my arms, and that's when he died in bed that morning in my arms.
What do you do when you lose the person that you love the most?
I grew up with the AIDS epidemic, so grief is nothing new to me, but the grief of losing a spouse was something that is different. It's a different type of grief. I know it would make him happy. And I think he'd probably start off by being second in line to donate blood. I would be first. While it's sad and I miss him every day, I had one of the great love stories, and I will be able to carry that forever with me.